Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador. It's a real pleasure to be here. So, Your Royal Highness, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I will try and be brief, as I really have one very simple, overarching message for this important conference today. And that is very simply that as the population of our planet moves towards 9, maybe 10 billion people, if we are to secure equitable access to energy, to water, and even to food in the coming decades, then sustainable development must be at the heart of our strategies for increasing trade, for commerce, for business, investment, and for driving economic growth. Now, some people still subscribe to the notion that low-carbon development is a nice-to-have, but perhaps just still too expensive to be considered for most projects. Or that sustainable development is a good optional extra, but that maybe it comes for many people at too high a price. Or maybe some consider that resource efficiency, while desirable, just costs too much to factor in. Or that energy efficiency is not worth bothering about. Or that the amount we waste and the resources we consume shouldn't really concern us in the short or medium term. Well, that's a very backward-looking view. Because in a world of increasing resource scarcity and increasing supply chain price shocks, no profitable business, let alone an economy, can afford to be so complacent. Because the fact is, in recent years, the economics of sustainability have transformed. Resource efficiency is increasingly taking center stage. And that was certainly something that I was struck by listening to leading global CEOs of some of the largest and most profitable companies at the World Economic Forum at Davos just 2 weeks ago. Not only can genuinely sustainable development be affordable, if approached in a genuine business-like way with real financial rigor, it can not only actually compete and win against the old economy alternative, I would go further. Actually, today, a resource-efficient business will have a distinct competitive advantage over those that don't. And what's more, there are real grounds for optimism that more and more progressive companies, the profitable companies of tomorrow, are getting this message. Now, in the 13 years since the turn of the millennium, we've seen the fastest reduction in poverty in human history. There are 500 million fewer people now living below the international poverty line of $1.25 a day. And in particular, India's progress over the last decade has been dramatic. And this rise in human prosperity is a colossal achievement, improving the welfare and life chances of a whole generation. It is a wonderful thing and should be celebrated. But this deserved success also comes at a price. As more and more people are lifted out of poverty, it's going to put increasing pressure on scarce resources. But it will also be the poorest in society that will feel the impact of shortages and increasing commodity prices the most severely if we don't actually take action now. Until now, for many people, tackling climate change has seemed like a long-term luxury that developing economies could perhaps afford to consider later. Well, this is a myth that we need to challenge. Here at the DSDS, we can all help make the case that every one of us, each and every economy, each and every country, needs to be part of a global solution to put the global economy on a sustainable path and to avoid the worst effects of dangerous man-made climate change. But we can also, finally, I think, kill the idea that we have to make choices between growth or responsible, environmentally responsible efficiency. Because based on our own experience in Britain, I would make 3 short observations. The first is all about being careful to use our finite and increasingly expensive resources prudently. In the 21st century, resource efficiency is not an optional extra, but an indispensable part of being globally competitive. That means less water, fewer raw materials, and less energy. And that use of materials and that economic mindset has a proud history here in India. It is the essence of the Indian tradition of frugal development. I'll give you one example of how I've seen that in Britain. I recently visited some new student accommodation in Sheffield that effectively were apartment blocks that had been put up and had won a prize in the European Union for the most environmentally efficient buildings. And what was really fantastic is not only were they environmentally outstanding, they were actually built at 30% less than the business as usual case for building the same accommodation. And it's not hard to understand why, because they'd actually used fewer inputs. They'd recycled more on the site, and actually going forward, it were going to be less expensive to heat and maintain. Second point is that the argument for a green model of growth is slightly different. Resource efficiency is often thought as doing existing things better, of just squeezing more juice out of the same old lemon. Well, of course, that is a good thing. But the new sustainable economics is also about doing new things. This is the exciting, innovative side of the green economy. By creating new products, new economic models, companies around the world are also creating new markets and new jobs and contributing to much-needed growth. In the UK and here in India, we have great examples of how this is already working. And I hope later in the session we'll hear more examples of that. But no country can do these things on its own, which brings me to my third and final point. This new endeavour to embrace resource efficiency has to be a collective effort. We need to pool our expertise and our experience. The UK and India in particular, I believe, have important lessons that they can teach the rest of the world, and together they are a natural fit. And that's why the DSDS is such an important platform, bringing people together. We need to enhance our already strong government-to-government collaboration, strengthen the more constructive business voices, and do more joint research. Here in India, for example, through the Energy, Climate and Growth Unit in the British High Commission, we're supporting India's efforts to enhance energy security, reduce climate change impacts, and secure access to energy for poorer people. Last year, Prime Minister David Cameron was asked by the UN Secretary-General to co-chair the high-level panel on the post-2015 development agenda, alongside the presidents of Indonesia and Liberia. Their report, published last year, set out a vision of a world without extreme poverty in all its forms by 2030. But the high-level panel also located sustainable development at the heart of their vision, arguing that it was critical to sustainable prosperity. And they urge collective action now to ensure we can meet the aspirations of 8 billion people in the next 2 decades. This summit offers a fantastic opportunity to respond to that challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no contradiction between fast growth and green growth. It all requires far more efficiency, innovation, and cooperation. Done right, ensuring access to food, energy, and water need not be achieved at a cost to the environment. It can be done to our mutual benefit. Thank you very much.